Right, good evening. Welcome along to the winners and losers this evening. I think we are approximately 5 minutes late, just like the PGMOL are with all the decisions on transparency that sits in the moment. I, of course, am your host, Philip Casey. I've already given it the second name, but I will tonight in terms of what it is, in case people want to find out who I am in real life. And if you do, I'm not interested in talking to any of us. After that, but joining me up on the side, I was trying a bit of different layout because Gav's not around to look after what's going on. I've got Pete and I've got Ray Dicko to discuss all the comings and goings over the weekend. Not much really happened, so I don't know what we're really going to discuss tonight because it's been a fairly quiet, uneventful weekend. Pretty straightforward in terms of the games and stuff that went on. Everyone kept their head down and just normal stuff happened and nothing was strange at all. Pete's been a while. How are we keeping, buddy?
Yeah, been good. Been busy, but been keeping up. Been keeping up with and listening in to some of the replays. So yeah, it's good to see, and I managed to catch up with the 10-year episode was absolutely brilliant. So yeah, going to get back in.
Yeah, I don't like most of them, so yeah, it was great allegedly, but like, do you know what I mean? It can't be helped. Ray Dicko, it's great to have you back. I haven't seen you in ages, buddy. Well,
yeah, well, not on camera anyway.
Yeah, go on. How are you getting on?
Good. All good. Still fuming though, in fairness, but I'm sure we'll be able to sort of try and get over it. Another day removed from it, but we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. So, and somebody, Ash Grace there straight away, just sort of in terms of what it is. Pete, Aaron Carter class. So fair play to you for your 2-episode cameo where you got to murder someone. That's pretty impressive. But we haven't said to you, well done. Your acting was definitely. I'll give you 7 out of 10. I think you can improve. Right, I
was just playing a bloke from Dreamland.
No, I think you could potentially just improve a wee bit. I'll give you some pointers off screen in terms of what could really work really well. And Ray, I'll give you tips on how to get into the acting if you want. But I will say one thing though, if given that we had this discussion more or less all yesterday afternoon when we were watching the American football. I'll tune out in a while. You can just remind me what you said and it'd be grand. I can keep going in terms of what it is. Right, so with that, was there anything I want to kick off with? No, we've got everyone in the chat. It's great to see us all. I see some new names and old names. I see, is that meant to be Paddy Lawson? It says Whack Lawson. That
has to be.
Any of them.
How are you, Paddy? How's it going? It's good to see him in there.
It could be anyone, any of the Lawsons. There's only about 105 young fellas in that family, so there's anything what's going on. Right, so lads, winners and losers, we know the form, we know the format, we know what's going on. Just remember, we will have our quick fire winners and losers at the end. I am, just for everyone that's watching, I'm in a deep depression after that weekend, between what happened on Saturday and then. As a Bears fan, I'm devastated still. I'm actually more, as Ray knows, I'm broken at this stage. Sport in me is just it all. I just want to wrap it all up and throw it in the bin. So entertain me. Exactly. So Pete, let's kick it off, right? We could go with the obvious thing, but I won't, right? Rory Fitzgerald, who's my American football team? Unfortunately, Rory, I am a Bears fan, which basically means that I'm the American equivalent of an Everton fan, right? So no matter who we sign, we're going to end up being garbage for most of the time. And every 10 years, something happens that we get a wee bit excited for and then ultimately fall flat in our faces. So it's great. It's because I can feel the pain that all the Evertonians fan feel, and especially they felt great after the weekend as well. So we'll come on to that later on. So I'm going to start off with Pete, your winner. Who is it? What is it? Why?
It was a little bit tongue in cheek actually with this one. It was Ange Postecoglou.
For nice pronunciation.
For 2 reasons, really. If you're being serious about it, I mean, they seem to be going unspurs. Like, I mean, Arsenal absolutely flying, and they matched them for stride. But I mean, Ange, for me, sat there in that chair and turned around in an age when you've got VAR, you've got cameras everywhere, you've got goal line technology, you've got the whole lot, and said, and I quote, we've got to accept that mistakes are part and parcel of the sport. And I just think it kind of sums it all up, really. It sums up the willful ignorance, that stuff we're going to talk about later, but it sums up, I mean, somebody made a point earlier on that every team in the Premier League will go through this in every week. There'll be cries of incompetence, but Liverpool are one of the only clubs that will stand up and actually try to do something about it. And when they do, everybody just piles on against Liverpool. It's insanity. Instead of saying, well, Liverpool have a bit of pull, and they actually seem to have the cheek, to stand up and demand a little bit of, shall we say, accountability. Instead of saying, yeah, because this is happening too much, they just pile on Liverpool and engage in rounds of whataboutery. It's sadomasochism, to be quite honest. It's just incredible logic. But for me, my winner is how, and I tell you why, how Ange could sit there with a straight face and actually deliver that line, having gotten 3 points that, barely scraping 3 points against 9 men. I mean, you look at the three big performances. When I say poor performance, Everton, humbled at home, by Luton, Manchester United beaten at home by Crystal Palace, and Manchester City beaten by Wolves. I mean, two of those sides, probably three, were poor. Liverpool with 9 men were excellent and felt ripped off. But the only side that felt and were ripped off. There's, as Sean always says, there's levels to this game, and we're the only top side to walk away from a game absolutely gutted to not get something out of it with 9 men. It goes to show you how I think how Klopp has, really turned this around. It's really, really interesting how good we are. That it's not just the opposing fans that are against us. It's everything, and it's great. I'm loving it. Gutted about the result. Winner Ange Postecoglou for having the cheek to say what he had to say with a straight face. But to be honest with you, I'm buzzing about the performance. I thought we were excellent. But the less men we went down to, the better we played.
Ray, thoughts on Ange being the winner of the week?
Yeah, I mean, as if. I mean, he's. I mean, I think Spurs have, they haven't blown anyone sort of away really. I'm not overly impressed with them. They've scraped like 2 home wins, against Sheffield United and ourselves. Took us going down to 9 men for them to really kind of, even look half threatening. I mean, we were the better team there. 10 men, we were by far the better team. And, they didn't seem to have any ideas as to how to sort of enforce themselves on the game. And we were always looking dangerous. And even with 9 men, we looked relatively comfortable in terms of holding out for a point. It wasn't, I've seen us in worse positions with 11 men on the pitch, to be honest with you, sort of hanging on for 3 points or what in the past. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sold by him at all. I mean, obviously there's a sort of a bit of a revolution of thought of sorts because of you've got Harry Kane who's gone and you've the new manager and he's trying to instill a different way about them, and obviously one of the big things, obviously changing their mentality. So like for them to get 2 late winners in one sense is kind of, I suppose, proving a point for them. But no, I mean, look, for them to come out with that, as Pete says, like it defies belief. I mean, yeah, your team has benefited from a decision, but let's call it out. There's nothing stronger than calling out the bullshit and calling out the ineptness of officials than when you've won a game. Like that's when you're in a far more credible position than any, and you should be calling it as you see it. It's a monumental error. If you flipped it the other way around, you'd be absolutely fuming yourself. So it was just so disingenuous, and it's only going to be a matter of weeks before he's on the end of maybe not a VAR mistake like that, because I think that's kind of almost a one-off, but he'll be on the end of something just as bad, and probably will cost him points. So I just don't understand the mentality of it from him.
So can I just let me take this at face value, right? They're sitting second in the league. They've played United and Arsenal and ourselves.
Yeah,
they haven't lost any of that in any of those games, right? Spurs were a shit show with Conte when he finished up at the end of last season, and whenever he finished up, and they had some random managing them for a bit and things like that. It's hard not to actually, if you take it at face value and park the events that led to them winning the game at the weekend, not to actually say, well, actually, this first stage or these first 7 games of the season, which is the 5th of the season, or just under the 5th of the season, they are the winners, and he rightfully should be seen as the winners of the week, because he's only a point off Manchester City with a team that has transitioned a lot of players out. They've changed and reshaped the squad massively since he got in, and haven't spent an awful lot of money to do it. So, the
points haul is impressive, but there's something. Yeah, it feels a bit sort of built on sand in some respects. I think that these kind of results and whatnot will kind of level off a little bit over the next few weeks. And as I say, they got out of jail against Sheffield United, 100%.
Oh, listen, both the Sheffield United game and ourselves, they've relied on sending offs to be able to pull a result out of the bag, right? And I can see people getting annoyed in it, but Pete called him the winner of the week, so I have to put the contrary to it. He is the media darling. The London-based media are going to absolutely lap him up because he's a straight talker, and a perceived straight talker, and he is man of the people. A bit like Klopp when he first arrived, which was the approach that was taken until things go wrong. And it'll be interesting to see how they manage him and how they manage that when it does happen in terms of what's there. I think inevitably, I know, Ray, your loser of the week is
Howard Webb.
Well, because I think this lends itself naturally to bring in the full discussion of what we really need to get into, and it's about corruption, and it's about embedded corruption, and it's about having corrupt people take over organizations. It's about having people who have been proved incapable at the highest level of being a top performer, and who's been clearly handed a job for the boys in terms of what it is. It's about having incompetent people from day one manage technology that they aren't qualified to do. It's about creating subjectivity in decisions that don't require subjectivity, because that's what the technology was there to remove. And it's about context. It's about continuing conflicting messages that have come out from this body that's self-appointed to be what's there. It's about the ingrained belief that the institution can't be wrong, and in that all the other institutions have to come to their help. It's the fact that they're able to utilize broadcasters and the media to push this respect dialogue towards people who don't deserve respect, because they are deeply incompetent and they are deeply incapable of doing the job that they're there to do. And ultimately, it's looking at a guy who has known biases, who was not fit to be a referee when he was in the job, and asking yourself, how can a guy who wasn't, who everything about him was lacking transparency, has no love from most clubs outside of Manchester clubs, which is bizarre. How can he be appointed to this organization? And surely at this point in time, the clubs themselves should be able to, because we people forget this. The Premier League is a separate body to the Football Association in England, right? It utilizes the Football Association's tools, and it's under their jurisdiction, but it's a private enterprise and a private body in itself, and it represents the top end of the English league spectrum. But if they want to change in the morning, they would decide, no, we don't want these referees anymore. We want their own body. We want the Premier League. We want the Premier League officials, right? We'll go out and we'll recruit the best. If they go to the guys in Saudi Arabia and say, listen, I know you look after Newcastle and you can do what you want, and sure, we'll end up just taking your money anyway. It's a bit like the government wants to take all the money from Etihad and will bury the Manchester City charges that are there. But look, will you go out and just sign all the best referees in the world, because that's who we want to referee the best league in the world? It's in your interest to do it, and they will. And ultimately, and I think Glenn Parsons is saying, yeah, there is this piece. This is where I go back to about the idea of transparency and independence, right? So whether it's liked or not liked, right? Whether it's liked or not liked, Howard Webb has a history as a South Yorkshire police officer.
Mm-hmm.
He has a history with Liverpool previously.
Mm.
Ask any Liverpool fan. Like the happiest day I remember that when, and you rarely hear about it, I was delighted when I heard that he was retiring as a referee. I was like, we don't have to deal with this anymore. This is a guy who thought he was bigger than the game in terms of what was going on. So to be totally honest with you, how he can be put in a position of ultimate leadership within the PGMOL and the standards to go from atrocious, which was last season, to absolute shit show, right? Now, and it is, this season has been the worst I've ever seen. The worst I have ever seen refed in any top league in the world. It's not surprising. So apology for hijacking your choice, Ray. But I've been sitting on this rant for about 48 hours at this stage, and I just had to let it out because there's still a way more to go on this, and I think we should dive into everything that's going on because the club have asked for the audio tonight. Do you trust them? Whatever audio they got, should they go record it at any stage? Unless there's video footage of them doing it.
Exactly.
Well, I made a comment fairly quickly after when I seen that whole kind of reference back to Simon Hooper sort of freezing a little bit and half putting the whistle to his mouth in that kind of period just after the restart. And I put a comment on Twitter which said it'd be interesting to hear the audio before anyone even got onto that sort of thing. And my immediate thought was, does it even exist anymore? Because like this all kind of has stunk really of sort of cover up. Now you can sort of you can go whichever end of the spectrum you want. You can go to the corruption end, or you could just go to the sort of incompetence end, or somewhere in the middle. But it feels like they are trying to cover the actual truth from an early stage, and it's like the audio, I suppose, will be very interesting if it does come out. If it doesn't come out, it'll tell even more of a story, won't it? Let's face it. I mean, it should be available. They should have that just for their own internal review processes. Really, if there's any kind of sort of checks and balances and quality control and learning from game to game, which you would hope to in a professional organisation. But if it doesn't come out, then there's a whole host of new questions that come out. Howard Webb as the loser of the week, I think, we had Mike Riley, and then it transitioned to Howard Webb, and clearly he would not want this kind of high profile scenario out there, which obviously puts him kind of firmly in the frame and on the back foot for having to kind of respond to this type of stuff. And obviously the second can of worms that opened was, the whole kind of side gigs that are going on. It's brought that to everyone's attention. Officials going out in Saudi, not to the UAE, doing games 48 hours before they're then coming back to do games in the Premier League. If they're taking those lucrative games, then they'll just, surely they have to sit out, a game. It's just one of those things. If they want, they can't have the cake and eat it sort of thing. And that's just really brought an even sort of worse dimension and worse look to it from Howard's Webb perspective, because not only does he have to justify the shit show at the weekend, he has to justify the circumstances leading up to it now. So he was a horrible referee in general. His attitude stunk when he was on the pitch. You could see it, as his ego was there for everyone to see. And just allowing him and knowing then how that will influence and sort of percolate down to the sort of the boys' club that exists. I mean, to me, it's the worst thing possible, really, to have a character like that in charge. I mean, his demeanour as a policeman on the pitch came over loud and clear, and it's that, it's reinstilling that kind of authoritarian kind of, you say anything. We see Jota now potentially facing charges and all this sort of stuff. Like, you can't say anything to these fellas, and like in any walk of life, surely a mistake, especially one that big, needs to be questioned. But you can't question anything, because there's ramifications, and you just end up in a far worse position. So look, Howard Webb, he's loser of the week for me, because he doesn't want to be in this spotlight. He wants his little merry bandwagon to roll on with the minimum amount of fuss. All these little side gigs that he's signing off on, everyone feathering their own nest, everyone having their own little jollies, left, right, and centre. He's going to have to potentially pull back on that now over the next few weeks, just to save a bit of face.
Pete,
you got to ask yourself, Phil. I think I agree with everything you said at the beginning, and you and I often pipe on this. You have got to ask yourself if it's incompetence or if it's part of the plan. To be honest with you, I mean, we all grew up watching a ridiculous WWE wrestling, but the attention that it got, because would say, I don't know, Jimmy Hart mounted us out, would run out and somebody would smack him with a chair. All the wrong things that happened in that sport are the things that are talked about today. And there's huge part of me that thinks nobody humanly could be that incompetent or that tired or lacking in that type of expertise using that type of technology. Nobody. And then you've got to ask yourself, I mean, everybody, these guys are human. What we noticed last year about Robertson and Klopp is not only did they confront the officials, they actually made the officials look human. They got a human reaction out of one of the officials. And as you know, one of the first real markers of authoritarianism is it doesn't want to appear human. And I think that really hurt them, to be honest with you. They stooped in their minds, they stooped to a level down to Andy Robertson's level, and they have never forgiven him or us for that. And Klopp has often, in the way he is, he's so clever in the way he questions things. He questions it so nakedly. I mean, it's not like Neil Warnock going on and having a rant and losing his mind. Klopp actually addresses things, strips them naked, and then hits people hard. And authoritarian-minded people don't like that. And it's no coincidence that Howard Webb has the career background that he is. He's used to saying, this is what we're going to do. This is our decision. And now we're all going to circle our wagons. And I think, if I'm being honest with you, we are. And it's not a conspiracy theory. It's just obvious to anyone with eyes that when you question authority, for example, like what happens here in Barcelona, young punk guys set fire to cars, they might be right, but the fact that they've gone about it in the wrong way negates their argument. However, when you're intelligent and gathered, like someone like Klopp, and when you confront someone with a question calmly several times, I mean, you only have to look at Klopp. Klopp asks the question maybe 5 times a season, how long are we going to continue to overload these players? And then he's destroyed for it. And then 5 or 6 managers follow suit, and they're all lauded because they're visionary. We need to take the agenda is clear. For some reason, they have dropped down to our human level, and they always do. They react to us, and I think we're paying a very steep price. And listen, you cannot tell me that what happened at the weekend was a mistake. It just wasn't. It just wasn't. It ticks the box for entertainment. The Premier League and the PGMOL walk hand in hand. I'm sure there's a nod and a wink. Listen, don't worry about your performance. If something crazy happens, sure, it's great television, and everybody will talk about it, to be honest with you. And the revenues just keep coming and coming. The problem is there's no real accountability. Phil, you made a point 10 minutes ago, and you said that mediocrity continues to be rewarded. And that's the central point. Players are hammered for mistakes. Virgil van Dijk was sent off the other week, quite rightly so, for mistiming a challenge. But he made the mistake of talking back, and he was given an extra game for it. There is still no accountability for any type of, not even error, or you've got yourself, the 2 linesmen, 3 or 4 guys in the studio in Stockley Park. You've got the eyes of the world. You've got a screen where you can go. But there is absolutely no excuse for these errors. Therefore, these guys. This is not, you know, Clive Thomas 1973, George Courtney 1984. This is 2023. All the technology and time that you've got in the world to blow your whistle, everything stops. I need to look at this. There is no excuse for incompetence anymore. This is by design. It's for entertainment value because there's no accountability. Because the minute, Phil, that you hold somebody accountable for a mistake, somebody from inside will blow the whistle and say, guys, that was the plan, and I'm getting punished for it. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
I mean, the thing, I mean, obviously a lot of people have noticed it and put comments about Simon Hooper being the fourth official tonight. I mean, that is a display of defiance, really. That's a display that they don't really hold Simon Hooper accountable for the events on Saturday. They're obviously going to more likely pin it on Darren England, but they're not going to sort of have two fellas kind of, you know, tarred with the same brush here. So that to me says that there's going to be no sort of nothing that will kind of come Simon Hooper's way in terms of, you know, missing games or anything like that. He had a smile on his face tonight, joking with players as they were coming on as subs and things like that. So look, he's on to next week. I'm sure he's already got a game allocated, and you'll see him, you know, strutting the stuff on Match of the Day next week. So there you go. Just, you know, just goes to show you.
So I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm past the age where you should actually be a conspiracy theorist, and if you're a conspiracy theorist at my age, then you need help. But for me, again, it boils down to, I call it, in this instance, it's not conspiracy, it's bias, right? There's a sense that that this team always seem to be, I hate saying it, right, but the refs have bought into this idea of always the victims, right? There's no other way around it. It's a terrible thing to say, and they feel with the way Klopp has talked and spent and talked out about these things, that they're showing them that this is on them, it's nobody else's fault. And that bias exists in the decisions. And it comes down to all the decisions we've seen this season. You've got the Van Dijk piece where he's reported for mouthing back to it, and he gets banned and he gets extra time off and all that type of stuff. Yet the Spurs team are waving imaginary yellow cards. You've got Jordan Pickford screaming abuse at the referees and the linesman on camera, live at a game, and you are not, nothing happens out of it. You've got crazy decisions that are going on in so many matches, and like I don't even want to focus just on Liverpool. Like, it's just the example that went on because it's such a big change. But this is going back years. This is going back before even VAR existed. Think about the goals that were ruled out for us before they brought VAR in against Manchester City, and I think our first attempt to take the title off them under Klopp.
Really?
Like, yeah, the Sterling piece and everything. Like, you go back to these incidents, and it just sits in terms of what's there. There's an inherent bias that's sitting in these officials, and when those officials are then rewarded by being put to organise and manage and front this organisation, you don't lose that bias. It's simply self-perpetuating in terms of the training and who gets to the tops. Because if the guys who they then look to promote and push, they will more or less mirror what they believe and act and how they've always believed and felt in terms of what was there. So this isn't going to change until something happens. And so for me, when I look at it, it's not just Liverpool. I saw a thing tonight saying that we benefited the most from VAR decisions last year. That's a disgrace. Or we had the second highest to overturns. That's a disgrace. That means the referees got it wrong more than they got it right when it came to our matches. Whoever was top, like, it's outrageous that I'd love to know who the top teams are. And I'll also say that normally the bigger teams, we will get the decisions against the Fulhams and the Brightons and the Southamptons and the Brentfords and the Bournemouths. Yeah. But when it comes to the bigger games, that's when all this gets thrown into a pot, and it's whoever comes out on the right side of the ref on the day. The fact that we've made more noise about the likes of John Moss, like the likes of your man who attacked Andy Robertson on the pitch, and they rounded their carts and they said no, he didn't. He was just happened to raise his elbow to his face. So anyone who gets stopped or is involved in a fracas on the street, just say, I was doing nothing, I just happened to raise my elbow to his face, right? If you're playing a football match, you didn't elbow the bloke, he was just running past your elbow when you happen to raise it, and it's absolutely fine. To my point, look, I just keep looking at this and going, there's no solution. The only solution to this is to have competition. I said this to Ray yesterday when we were knocking about. I said the only way that this gets resolved is to have a second body. A second body that the teams can choose to use, as opposed to this one, and say, I'm not prepared to do it. And the third change, or the second change I'd make, and I've been saying this for weeks and months at this stage, I do not want one organization driving who's making the decisions on the video side of things, right? I don't want, they don't have the level of competence, they don't have the understanding, and they don't understand technology. They should be a separate body again to the PGMOL, who have no relationship to the referees. They should be just there purely to make the call, and if the call is wrong, advise them to call it. There's a clear and obvious error, you need to overturn that call. You know, there's so many layers to the bad decision making that goes on in this. It's like it's a compounding piece of an event that goes on. It's when you're looking at a disaster, and every single attempt that goes on makes that disaster worse. Right? It's like them saying, well, should the Titanic can't sink, it doesn't really matter if we hit this iceberg, because the iceberg will go away and we'll just keep rolling on. Okay, we'll steam full force into the iceberg and see what goes. It will be grand, right? You've got to separate these guys. You've got to separate what goes on, and then you've got to make those decisions transparent and open to the public. It's ridiculous that here we are, the club had to go and ask for the audio, right? Right, you watch the American football, I do. Anyone who watches rugby out there will hear it as well. Anyone who's watching other sports, in American sports, it's the refs are mic'd up. They explain their decisions at the time. And if it's wrong, it's wrong. But you can hear the decision-making process that's going on. It's live and it's there. When they have to go back to the guys to the video booth in New York, you can hear the conversation that's going on. In rugby, the audio is fed live into the television feed. Everyone in the world that's watching that match can hear the discussion that's happening between the referee and the TV match official to understand what the conversation is. So even if they make the wrong question or having the wrong conversation, at least you know the conversation that happened.
But do you know the crazy thing that's crept in recently, and it's been mentioned as sort of part of the reason why the sort of the error occurred on the VAR. This whole kind of obsession now about things taking too long. You know, when you watch rugby, you not only do you hear it, but you can actually see, referees, the people on the video assistants, whatever. You can see them calmly going through what has just happened, explaining it back and forth to one another, clear communication, ensuring they give themselves the maximum opportunity to come to the right decision, because that's ultimately what everyone's seeking here, so that there's no, injustice can be shouted later down the line, or any integrity be questioned. Whereas now, for whatever reason, we're like, oh, we can't have a VAR check taken 3 minutes. Well, why can't we have a VAR check taken 3 minutes if it ultimately leads to the right decision, and it ultimately leads to us understanding why they've reached the decision that they've reached? I'd far rather have that than us trying to half-arse this in 20 seconds just so that we've moved the game on quickly. What's the point in moving the game on quickly? We're having 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes at a time anyway. So I just thought it makes absolutely no sense to me that we should be encouraging these officials to rush through a VAR check as quickly as possible because someone's a bit pissed off that they've got to wait 60 seconds for a decision. It's mind-boggling.
What doesn't make sense as well, we're adding 20 minutes to the end of games now for substitutions that they didn't for the past 20 years, right? Outside of World Cups, the injury time was 4 minutes. Unless somebody broke their leg and had to be carried off on a stretcher, it was 4 minutes. Now it's 9 minutes, 10 minutes for what they should have been playing all along. I go back to, there's so many things that's messed up in the game at this point in time. There should be a game clock in top level football because there's no reason not to. It's on the television. They can stop the clock. And again, it should be an independent timer that manages the stopping of the clock, that operates on the whistle, ball goes dead, it stops, and you play 90 minutes, right? That's it's simple as that. Once the 90 minutes elapse, the full-time whistle blows because the clock gets stopped when there's an injury, when there's a substitution, when there's a goal kick. Or even you say, when there's goal kicks and throw-ins, the clock doesn't stop. That keeps rolling because it's part of the game. It's just for when there's things that are directly free kick, yada. So that means if you have a VAR check, so what if it takes 5 minutes? So what if it takes 6 minutes? So what if it takes 9 minutes? Do you know what I mean? Like, because it's not impacting the game. You're still going to play the same amount of minutes as it comes to it. But it has to be independent. I heard the most rubbish excuse today. Oh, we have to change the laws of the games to allow them to do it. Bollocks. The game is stopped. The game was stopped when their first excuse that they actually, your man said, well, we thought they'd awarded the goal, so that was it. As soon as he sees the referees pointing to a goal kick and it's not going to the centre circle, all he does is get in the air. No, that's a goal. That's a goal.
Exactly. And you can see that you can see the pure look of panic on his face. It's like, what is going on? The referee himself. Clear. I from the top, but then when I go, okay, well, at least it's going to be changed. I see your man, what's his name? The fella who's always writing about Henry Winter is talk about that. We need to give Howard Webb a fair chance. He's a big promoter of transparency of the game. When you hear this, it's just another institution, coming to the aid of another. Gary Neville was all up in arms about it and saying Liverpool failed thing. The next day, he's like, well, they said sorry. PGMOL have not apologised. They've not apologised for elbowing Andy Robertson in the face. They have not apologised for what went on.
That's being pushed.
It's fake news to echo Donald Trump.
It's the best fake example of fake news that you can think of.
Yeah, because it never happened. It literally never happened. And then
it's revisionist history right in front of you. I mean, we were all told that was a jerk reaction. He thought it was a wasp or something. That's what they wanted, and because enough people want to believe that, it becomes all Liverpool fans. I mean, it's right in front of you. It's right in front. This is the whole thing, and this is what's so. I mean, Phil, you talked about a couple of seasons ago about leaving for the Super League. My attitude is, why not? Fuck it. Pardon my language, but why not? Just because I've had, personally watching this, I've had enough of them inventing ways basically to screw us over because it's entertaining and it draws clicks. I'd rather watch us play against, Al Nassr or something. It's at least it's just boring.
But Pete, what's driving me mad is that get rid of VAR. This is the latest thing now that you're saying. The pundits get rid of VAR. VAR's the problem. No. It's the same people who are making the wrong decisions in the box, whether they're asleep, awake, watching the match, not watching the match, drawing the lines, not drawing the lines. It's the same people making those decisions that you're going to have on the pitch. So if they can't make the right decision, with all the replays, with the technology in front of them, I'm sorry, but that in a work environment, in any other environment, would lead to you being let go from your post. Right? If you're that incompetent at doing it, you cannot in this. It's like a doctor. A doctor can't a surgeon can't go and get 80% of his decisions his surgery is right. Because 20% are going to lead to massive injuries or deaths, right? You can't, right? Now, thankfully, football doesn't lead to it, but referees are being paid to get the decisions right. And everyone can accept small mistakes happening, like awarding the throw the wrong way, awarding a free kick when it shouldn't have been a free kick, stuff like that. You get that, right? But on the biggest decisions in the game, when you have all the technology,
let's call it out. It involves a goal.
Involves a goal that the game is already stopped because they stopped to give a free kick or whatever it was because it was offside. Because so the game is stopped. Right? It's not like you're stopping the game to go and check this. The game is stopped. There is absolutely nothing here that should be deemed incorrect. particularly when it comes down to the basics, the pure technological basics of the lines that can tell you whether the guy is onside or offside. In this instance, you didn't even see it because the line of the pitch gave away. You could see where the Spurs player was and the line of where Luis Diaz was. Like by eye alone, you can see that this is what's going on.
Yeah.
In the Qatar World Cup, for all the things I hated about it and despised the Qatar World Cup and FIFA's corruptness and everything that's going on there, right? They had a semi-automated offside technology in play, right?
Yeah,
there's no reason why, again, the most expensive league outside the Saudi Mad League in the world can't utilize all this technology to simplify the decisions. Because
you know why they won't do it? Do you know why they won't do it? Because they'd have to say we have to do this because we can't do it ourselves, and that's the whole. I'm sorry, Ray. I know you're English, but that's the whole British problem. The minute they introduce a solution,
right.
The minute it means that they'd have to turn around and say, "Listen, we're not capable of doing." I mean, Liverpool lost the league in 18-19 by 1 point. You could argue that we lost 3 points on Saturday. Liverpool lost the league on goal difference in 1989. Goal difference in 1989. You're talking like Everton fans and all these fans will say, "Oh, this happens." It's always saying that when you're absolutely never going to compete for anything. Like those fans, they're never going to compete for anything. But we're competing fine margins. We're already fighting against the richest clubs in the world. Newcastle have just joined that fold, so every point matters to us. So basically we're told to get over and get on with it. They know, opposing fans that know that 2 or 3 points to us, or even 1 point sometimes, can make a massive difference, can be the difference. I mean, we may well have lost the league this weekend, and people know that. If that happens to Luton Town next week, it means they're going down by 12 points as opposed to 15 points. It doesn't really matter, but it matters to Liverpool, and that's why people they just know it, and that's what winds me up. That's what really winds me up, that it's that important. I mean, you can go into 115 charges, which nobody seems to want to press anymore. Nobody. There's no urgency. These meetings a meeting that happened between Manchester City and Manchester City owners and the Premier League a few weeks ago, basically to how can we carry this on? It's just I'm done with it. Like, I mean, Saturday for me just made me go, not a conspiracy, but it's not a conspiracy. It's not incompetence. It's the plan. It's just the plan.
It comes back to the bias.
It's the plan, though, Ray. It's exactly as Phil says. It's the plan. Let's continue the narrative that Scousers are victims, and that Manchester City are dominant, and that Everton are garbage, and that Chelsea are a shit show, because that's why people tune in every week. It's like the Truman Show. If Truman ever booked his holiday off that rock that he was living on, that would be the end of the show. You're watching because you want to see someone struggle and never quite get there. And I think that's, to be honest with you, the plan.
I mean, to be honest, I mean, I was fed up at the stage when Van Dijk got sent off, to be honest with you, because as much, like, we talk about Van Dijk's red card, we talk about Curtis Jones' red card, and people will say, yeah, the red cards. And I understand that. I understand the subjective. But I also think in both instances, no one could get too upset at those being yellow cards. I mean, the on-field decision was a yellow card until the referee was told on Saturday to go over to a freeze frame for 7 or 8 seconds and look at where Curtis Jones's foot ended up, which was the first indication that this thing was being played out, with a sort of an uneven deck or whatever. It was getting stacked against us at that point, really, truly, and honestly. Like, what went after it was, was mind-boggling. But it started then. It started at that moment when the check went, and you're going back to Van Dijk. For me, that could easily have been a yellow card. I sort of smelt a rat at that point. Especially off the back of us having a red card the previous week, which had got rescinded. It's fairly useless to you being rescinded when you've had to go through the game for that amount of time. Thankfully, we actually look pretty decent with 10 men. So the impact of us going down to 10 men has been astoundingly kind of non-existent, really. So yeah, it feels like there's clearly some kind of plan, agenda, bias, whichever way, whichever combination you want to come up with that. I'm intrigued as to whether this continues or not now over the next sort of
again
5-6 games, rest of the season. It can't surely it can't continue, because if it keeps going at this level, it's just going to be absolutely ridiculous.
Right, you know what the problem is? Sorry, Phil, I know you want to jump in. You know what the problem is? If they change the officials that are on Liverpool games, again, it's an admission that there's something wrong. If then those officials, the same official, change their behaviour towards Liverpool, it's another admission that they were doing something wrong and they have to change. It will continue because it's Britain. It will continue and continue and continue, because that's the way it is. If they change something, it's them saying, "Oh, we got it wrong. Sorry." Right now,
I think it's just a mentality thing, because I come back to, right, you think of everything that's gone on through the whole Hillsborough campaigning right the way through since 1989, right, and even to this day, even now, right, the people who were involved still refuse to accept responsibility and offer an apology. I can't remember what your man's name was. Is the superintendent fella who just point blank refuses to change what the story was that they're putting out there. This is the same mentality that these guys have. Going back to Ray's point, they're run by a copper. It essentially is the same mentality that's in there, that we are right no matter what. We stick together, and if we stick together, this will all stay right. And you can look across the world. That's the mentality that's led to so many displays and marches against the way police handle things. These guys have gone from the idea that they're referees. Referees are there to manage the laws of the game, right? It's not like even to the language that's used, charges and all this type of stuff. They're there to administer the laws of the game. Okay, it's a game. Ultimately, it's a game. It's not life or death. It's not about there's a winner and there's a loser, but it's a game, and they can make mistakes. And I think so many more of these things wouldn't. This whole rhetoric and this whole conversation and debate wouldn't last if they had have always been accountable from the start and were prepared to stand in front of a camera and answer the questions that everyone has at the end of these games. And I'm not talking about these major mistake incidents. I'm just talking in general. We watch so many games where the refereeing decisions are so bad. Was it Webb that gave the 3 yellow cards to Croatia in the World Cup? Like, you know what I mean? This is the type of thing that we're talking. Well, it was one of the English referees. I can't remember which one it was.
His name was kind of blonde as well.
Can't remember, but this is what I'm talking about in terms of these guys. It's that mentality that's imbued in them, that because they're in a position of authority, that if you challenge the authority, there will be no respect and nobody will pay attention to what's going on. When in fact it's the counter to it. If you challenge it and they accept that they made mistakes and they want to learn how to get better, and they're not, this is what they're going to do, and enact change and enact how it's going to be different, and to ensure that doesn't happen, then it improves. And people stay with you and they buy in once they see the improvement. And if they don't see that improvement, they're binned as a body and they're replaced by something else, because they're not competent and they're not capable for what it is.
Graham Pollitt was another character who was an absolute disgrace of a referee. Went on for years and years and years. He was
exactly
one of the worst in history.
But this then going back to this whole thing, when you look at it and you say, right, even when they were involved, they were trying to change decisions. Think of that freeze frame of Curtis Jones when they walk over to look at it. If you look at that in normal time, it's not a sending off. It was a yellow card on the pitch. If you, as you said to me yesterday, once he walks over and it's freeze framed with him going over the top of the ball, the bias is there. Whether you have a bias towards the club or whatever it is, the bias, when you see that, go, Jesus. It's like when you watch these tackles in slow motion, they look 100 times worse than what it is. I want to finish with this Wizards point. If we've released a statement, they better get something out of it. It's pointless. And I actually, to that point, I completely agree with them, because if they get nothing out of it, they will be seen as idiots. But you know what the strange thing is? They won't get anything out of it. Right? Liverpool won't get anything out of it. They've probably made their lives worse than they've made them any better, right? But what it will do is it will push buttons, and it will push panic buttons in the top end, where something will happen. Something's going to happen. I think what's going to happen is the mic'd up audio is going to become part and parcel of the game, and it's long overdue. Long overdue, because it's the one transparent piece. It's the one transparent piece that will force better decisions, and improvements, and remove this mazy type of thing that goes on, because immediately the guys who are deeply incompetent, the likes of your man England, the likes of your man, what was the other guy's name who was on VAR for us? Was it Tierney? Is that guy's name who's continually...
Not Kavanagh or Tierney. Was it Kavanagh or Tierney?
The other fella, is it Coots, is it?
Coots, David Coots, yeah. But Pete, these guys are going to be shown up for how incompetent that they are, that they will lose their jobs. And it sounds terrible, and nobody wants to see anyone lose their job. But
you can't do it right.
That's my point. If you can't do the job, then you shouldn't be at that level of the game. And then the guys that are coming up then should be given the opportunity to do it, because ultimately you want the people, if this is the top end of the game, you want the people who can make the right decisions consistently and competently. And that doesn't exist to what it is today. And look, we could go on about this for hours and hours and hours. Yeah. Ultimately, I just think that's where it's going to end. We will see a change.
Can I just make one other point about VAR and when the referees? I've noticed this. So at Anfield, when the position of the cameras as well, to me, is a crucial thing. At Anfield, when you go over to the VAR monitor, you go into kind of like the tunnel area. You're not facing up to any fans. There's plenty of grounds, Spurs included, where the VAR screen is stuck in the middle of a home section of fans who are shouting and bawling and looking to influence what's going on. Why is that? Why is that a thing? Why isn't there a level playing field around all the different grounds? For me, that's another area that needs to be looked into, because it's all wrong standing there in front of a load of Spurs fans influencing your decision.
Yeah,
100%. But Ray, you shouldn't have to go over it. Like, why? The only time you should be asking the ref to come over is on a subjective piece, right? And in that one, if there's no point in saying what do you think it is, he's given him a yellow card. If you're in his ear to say you're wrong, it's a red card. There's nothing to go over and look at the video. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's what are you saying? I think you should have a look at that one again. Well, what do you think? I think it's a red card. There you go. The decision is made. And you think it's a red card. I'll give him the red card. What's to go over? It's not like it's where's the position of the ball on a penalty decision. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like on the edge of the box, is it inside, outside? I think you need to have a look at this to be sure yourself.
Yeah, exactly, Phil. You're right. And you know what it would be like? You were a keeper. Imagine you save a penalty, right? And you start the way VAR, you started from the line, and the referee decided on VAR to freeze frame when you're a yard off.
You stepped off, yeah.
It's the same logic. It's the very same logic, because these people don't understand football. They actually don't understand football because none of them play it. That's the whole thing. It's just, you're right. Try to play ex-players that didn't quite make it at the highest level. There's one lad managing at championship level. I think he's a bald lad. And apparently he played at a decent level and had to pack it in at 26 or 20. And apparently he's very, very good. That's the way to go. It's the only way. Fellas that actually understand the game.
Now, can I throw just one last thing in? I mentioned this to you yesterday, Phil. The whole Klopp versus the PGMOL, there's still an English versus German thing that exists, whether it be an unconscious bias or not. To me, it's in the mix here. It never gets talked about, never gets said. Still a fairly taboo subject in some respects. So, you're not going to get Sky Sports or anyone like that talking about it. There's an unconscious bias because there's a German manager involved, in my eyes.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't want. There's something that was said there by Emmett in terms of who's on here loads of times in terms of this. I don't want them to release just the conversation that happens between it. I want the 90 minutes of audio. I want to understand what's being discussed.
Context.
I want to understand what's being discussed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this the idea of this on-field referee must make final decisions. No, because if he get the idea of video is that if the guy on the field gets the decision wrong, there's somebody there to say that's not right. You need to change that decision. It's ridiculous to think of it in any other way.
But I think what he's saying is that he should have a look at it, and it shouldn't be, because you hear it in commentary, he's been called over to the monitor, he's looking at it, and the player is almost taking his jersey off knowing he's going to be sent off. It's not. It's basically you're being called over, you're being told. So
anyway, lads, we've got 5 minutes, right? We haven't got on to Everton, your loser, and Dicko's winner, right? So, and we're not going to, because we've got 5 minutes to do the fast fire winners and losers. On the back of that epic rant about the state of officialdom in England, which actually is just a reflection of what's going on at the politics level in England. Let's be honest about it as well. If you actually just apply that right the way across, it's the exact same. It is a complete another breakdown of the institutions that English people in England are experiencing at the moment, which is an absolute shame. And hopefully they look to do something different the next time around. But sure, that's their choice. Ray, I'll start with you. It's a quick fire round, so I just want quick ones as opposed to whatever it is. Give me your winner.
Well, Newcastle, I mean, look, they've bounced back from what was, bad run a few weeks back. Obviously, we beat them with 10 men. But since then, obviously, they've turned things around. They got a sort of a solid point in the Champions League. They had the big, massive victory against Sheffield United, knocked Manchester City out the cup midweek. And then, obviously, they're one of the big beneficiaries, them and Arsenal, obviously Spurs, but Newcastle closing the kind of the gap that had grown between them and kind of the top four. So, yeah, they seem to be back on track. They've obviously got the big game coming up against PSG. So I guess from their perspective, it's all gone swimmingly well since the setbacks that they have. So, yeah, Newcastle was my big winner of the week, probably along with Arsenal, but Newcastle, especially seeing as they knocked City out the cup, although they did get rewarded with a game against United, which was quite funny in the draw.
Pete, your loser, yeah?
Manchester United. Well, Erik ten Hag, actually, because how can you spend all that money on Andre Onana, Aaron Bat as a fullback, Højlund as I don't understand what he does, Mason Mount as I really don't understand what he does.
Quick! I don't
get it. I don't get it.
I do. I think he's a genius. And if Ray is giving Newcastle winners of the week and you're giving Man United as losers of the week, and there's 3 points in the difference between those two teams, one has a 4-3 record and one has a 3-4 record, lads, you are smoking the great bandicoot at this moment in time, because you're basically looking at the Spider-Man meme, pointing at each other in terms of what's there.
There's worlds between what should be expected, even if Newcastle haven't spent billions 5 minutes ago, and Manchester United, who are established royalty, there's universes between them, to be honest.
No, Pete, I explained this 2 weeks ago. Manchester United are Liverpool for most of the last 45 years, right? They haven't been relevant in nearly 10 years at this stage. Like they have not been relevant in nearly 10 years. Onana is essentially one of the many goalkeepers. He's one of the many goalkeepers we signed until Pepe Reina came to the club, because he could just insert any of them and it's the same result.
There's a man going around, right? With, the old boy from East End that's falling back in his chair. That's a split screen between him and Onana. It's the best thing I've ever seen.
But I'm just saying, it is what it is, and they're exactly what you'd expect them to be, right? The only difference is they spent more money than anybody else to get to that point, and I feel that pain. That was us at the late 90s, early 90s, right? You remember this? We used to be like up there with the biggest spenders every single year when this was going on, and we'd still end up as Cat Melogian somewhere in the middle of the table about
all stones.
Yeah, just.
Do you not think that Erik ten Hag is running around though trying to convince everybody how clever he is?
Come here to me. We need to move on. This is the quick fire. It's quick fire, and you're about as quick fire now as a lump of slime, right? I can't believe I'm going to give you my winner of the week, Aston Villa. What a result, right? they're fifth in the league. We've everyone been banging on about Brighton, and they've got the same record to what's their thing. And Unai Emery is doing brilliant, and they've made some great signings. I'll say one thing: since Emery's come in, they've made some absolutely brilliant signings. They got rid of loads of rubbish players, didn't have much of a transfer spend, and they're doing really well. So phenomenal work for that's there.
Wouldn't want to be playing Brighton next. Who's playing them?
We are.
Yeah. Okay.
Come here to me. Everton loses the week. I'm going to throw it there, lads. Everton, like it's we didn't get a quick mention in, but like to be beaten at home by Luton. Actually, it's not even the losing at home. It's the fact that the Luton fans were slagging off the state of Goodison before the match. That just made it.
They've probably got
like when Madigan Road feel. That's where Luton play. They play on Ben.
It's like when that stand fell down in St James's Gate down at the Ivy Grounds. That's how bad Goodison is at this stage. It's going to fall down, and that bills. I think bills should be used by construction companies to take buildings down, because if you bill enough, it starts just falling all around in terms of what's there. And
the unfortunate thing is that, like, I don't know, Everton, they seem to be getting the win every now and again. I don't know. I've got a feeling whilst they'll be there and thereabouts, they're gonna get that coveted 17th place in the league and bounce into the new stadium next season. Or swim into the new stadium.
It'll be the best round in the championship.
The new stadium's going to be sponsored by Triathlon, because you're going to have to swim out to get to it, swim around beacons to get into it. There'll be no fans in it. It'll be great. They'll probably win loads of matches in terms of what's there. Any more winners and losers of the weekend? Let's face it, we were the losers. That would have been, with all the results that went on before, if we'd have got,
we'd have been top.
Even if we'd have hung on for that point after all the crap that had gone on. But if we'd have obviously beaten Spurs, like I think we could easily have done with 10 men. Yeah. Let's face it. If we stay with 10 men and throw Darwin Núñez on for the last 10-15 minutes, giving Spurs ineptness to do anything against us, I think we could easily have come out with another 3 points for the third time this season with 10 men. But look, it wasn't to be. We were on the cusp of being major winners this season. This week.
Yeah, it's like, again, we got to go out and get the 3 points against Brighton away from home, and we haven't been doing particularly well down there in the last couple of seasons, so it's a real one for them to step up. And then it's another international break for absolutely no reason.
I know. I mean, what's the even point? I mean, what are this round? What was this round of games?
The next round of international games are all
about the qualifiers, aren't they? Because they're squeezing them all in because of the late World Cup. I think that's why it's all getting so bleeding intense.
Garbage.
Honestly, the next round of international games is to celebrate international referees being able to talk to each other or something. Who knows?
Howard Webb. I think I'd throw Jota forward as a loser of the week as well. I've seen O'Sheen putting in.
I get you, but the first yellow card, your man trips himself up. Like, come on.
Does he? I'm not convinced now.
And then gives it all that.
There must have been a little bit of a brush because Jota didn't even flinch when the yellow card was given.
I'll tell you one last one. Manchester City have to be winners of the week because they can go and they can drop points to Wolves, and no, it doesn't make a blind bit of difference. And that's what really annoys me. As I was saying to you, Ray, like, we're looking at it and you're there going, right, win here puts us top of the league, and for the first time in so long, right?
Yeah.
City haven't felt pressure since.
They haven't.
Since we were there.
A real point. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's the frustrating part, because we could potentially have, stayed top up until maybe we played them. You know what I mean? Like that's how important that decision was. It's not just it's not just what it will mean in the final analysis. It's the whole context and the mentality of Liverpool being out in front potentially, and what signal that sends. But that opportunity for that kind of momentum has gone, unfortunately, and they'll probably turn Arsenal over this weekend, and normal service will be resumed in all likelihood.
that's the frustrating part. But look, that's what football's all about, and it's still very early days. We're 7 games into a 38-game season. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And the problem is, in this day and age, you can lose a league in September, but you can't win one. And if I trot out any more cliches, I am definitely going to be the winner of the week, because it's always darkest before the dawn. He's got a beautiful arrogance. He's got a beautiful arrogance, as that Dominic Szoboszlai. And I just want to say I want to marry him, because he's just a phenomenal man. He's grace and beauty to watch. And I think, what did I call him? I said it to one of the lads, and they were like, that is just phenomenal. It was electric something or other. I can't remember what it was, but I described him which I thought it was electric elegance. That's what it was, because he's just everything. There's something about him. He's my winner of the week. I just love him, and he just bangs goals in the top corner, and he goes up and down the pitch, and I just think it's great. Keep it going. Big Dom. It's been a while since we had a big Dom in midfield who doesn't want to use Budweiser or beer mats to cover up anything that's going on. So it's delighted to have him, and lots of people. We're delighted to have lots of people on that team. It's great times.
Rebuild. I mean, it
is great times. Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing the B team again on Thursday. It's being the beauty at the moment.
Tell you what, Gravenberch, the ball's on a string.
Would you advocate, though, right, if we go all the way to the end of the season and we lose the league by 2 points, let's say, right? Would you advocate that they just make a replica trophy and just claim they won the league because they were robbed of that game? Like, I would, as much at this stage. The viewpoint from rival fans and stuff is that, look at the state of them doing bus trips around the thing. What the hell? Just announce yourself as the champions. Yeah. Go full rest of it. Go full rest of it. We've got our own trophy. We're gonna have celebration.
I'm with you. They're gonna say we did it anyway. Do you know what I mean? They're gonna say we did it, and that's the killer. But what you watch next few weeks, something will happen to somebody else, and they'll be like, nobody stands up, and the usual, and we'll all stand up and say, listen, we told you when this was happening to us, and you're all pointed and laughing, and I can't wait for it. Yep. Because as you say, Philip, when you reward mediocrity. I'd
just love anarchy to ensue, and everyone just starts announcing themselves as the champions because they won a game or 3 games or something. It is right. Have you anything to plug, Pete?
No, nothing that I can talk about. I was away. I was away. You know why I can't. But when the time comes, I will. Be good, crack.
Have you anything to plug?
No, absolutely not. No.
You sure?
Oh God, yeah.
Come here. I also want to commend you on doing it in front of your little picture of Liverpool you had behind you. You definitely strategically located yourself just in front of that picture there to give it a bit of.
I've had a comment from one of the lads in the WhatsApp that looks like I'm in a travel lodge or a Premier Inn.
Really?
Are you though? Are you?
It was a gift, actually. It was a gift when I left Liverpool. When I moved from Liverpool, one of my mates over there got me this picture to hang up in the house when I moved to Dublin. So yeah.
Dave, just so that you'll never forget Liverpool, and it's always close to your heart. Well done, Ray. I'm delighted for you, and that's a lovely story to finish off the show. So I just want to thank everyone for their chats in the chats. Right, I have to say it's been great. It's been enjoyable to read them as they're going through. All the regulars, all the new lads in there, lots of the Lawsons and fans of the Lawsons, and people claiming to be children of the Lawsons, and everyone else that's in there, just making it enjoyable as we go through the night. I'm sure everyone is going to be still annoyed as this goes on. Nothing's going to get resolved, and it's you're just going to end up eating your hat by the end of the week. So let's just hope that we smash Brighton, and we just move on to the next game, and that they do use this sense of injustice to take it out of the rest of the teams in the league and drive it forward. Siege mentality, old school, what United did with what Ferguson did with United for years and years and years and years. Just use it. Burn it. Make it become your burning passion so that you don't drop points and you don't do anything. And I always know that you're dangerous when it comes to having only 10 men, because that's what's been going on for most of the season. That's going on with the corrupt refs. That's what it is. As I said to you, it won't have a thing. Anyway, that's been your show. I've been your host, Phil Casey. That's been Pete on this side of me here. and then Ray and there, I can put my hand down on Ray's gaff. I could actually put my hand probably over, not too far away from Ray's gaff. There's what's there. There'll be more shows on from the lads during the week. I don't know. I forgot to ask Gav what's going on and what I need to say. So there's something. The charity, I think, for the people doing the marathons. I think that's what the lads are doing. So do that.
Close, isn't it? Must be later this month, is it?
Later this month in terms of what's going on. So all the best to those people in terms of what they're doing, and hopefully we keep raising the funds that's going on. And there'll be more shows on, and I'm sure there'll be lots of people on the shows talking about the football and what's going to come out of getting the audio. And if you have opened that audio file, I'm sure you've enjoyed what you've heard so far in terms of
There's only one thing I'm looking forward more to the audio, and it's the emergency pod from Gav and hopefully Shawnee. If Shawnee's not on that, we're going to miss a trick.
Yeah, to be fair, I won't be tuning in, and that's no slight on the lads at all. There's way too much stuff going on in Bears land that I'm way deep. Like, if you think this is bad, this is us just with losing again. The whole thing, the cart, the wagons are falling off. It's on fire. There's nothing. We can't get anything out. It's just it's awful. It's almost, they're going to end up building the stadium under the water at this stage, like Everton did. I can just see what's going on. It's not going to happen. And with that, I'm going to leave you all tonight. So good night, God bless. That's been your show. We'll talk to you during the week. Well, I meant to take down these things.
What's going on with?
Hang on. We're still live. We're still live.